I stand before the judges at the jewelry design competition and admit to plagiarism. Then, I announce my withdrawal from the contest, along with my resignation as design director of Fairchild Group. My fiance, Caleb Fairchild, shoots daggers at me. If you walk away from this competition, our engagement is off. My father follows up by slapping me across the face. First, you plagiarize your own sister, and now you're breaking off your engagement with the Fairchilds? Are you trying to ruin our family? Oh, I'm not just calling off my engagement. I'm also cutting off my ties with you. I respond apathetically. I make this decision because I have been given a second life. In my previous life, my stepsister and I competed in this contest. First place earns the title of the nation's top jewelry designer and $50 million from Fairchild Group. However, round after round, her designs are exactly the same as mine, and she submits them before I do. The judging panel gives me a pass because of Caleb and lets me advance to the finals, but not without a warning to never plagiarize again. I refuse to believe it. I switch to a brand new computer, lock myself in my room, and pour everything into a new design. Yet, when the final designs appear on the big screen, history repeats itself. In the end, my sister takes first place and walks away with everything that should have been mine. The reputation I painstakingly built is ruined, and my name is dragged through the mud online. My parents are ashamed of me. They knock me out and sell me off to the countryside to marry an old man. Ultimately, I die after endless abuse. When I open my eyes again, I'm back at the semifinals. Everyone is pointing at me as they stare at the two identical designs. Could you explain what's going on here, Clara? The judge's stern voice rang in my ears. I, Clara Gardner, snapped back to reality and scanned the entire venue. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms tightly around my chest because just a second ago, that wretched old man had tortured me to death. My fiancé, Caleb Fairchild, demanded, "Well, what are you waiting for? Say something. What's with that posture? Are you afraid? You're representing my company as the chief designer, and this is how you embarrass me?" That was when it hit me. I had been reborn. The very next second, my half-sister, Sophie Gardner, smiled sweetly and linked her arm through mine. "I know you don't want to admit that your younger sister is better than you, Clara. It's honestly my fault as well. I shouldn't have stolen your spotlight. Why don't we do this instead? Let's both explain our design concepts. If yours sounds better than mine, I'll admit I plagiarized your work. Deal?" Before I could respond, she picked up the microphone and explained, "This necklace is inspired by a celestial legend. It's said that the shimmering stars in the Milky Way are fragments of longing scattered by the god of love." Her explanation matched exactly what I had in mind. Applause erupted from the audience. Caleb gently took her hand and pecked it, while my father and stepmother looked at her with unmistakable pride. I was the only one left standing there like a clown, frozen on stage, unable to say a single word. Whispers spread through the crowd. She must have plagiarized her sister's work. All those stunning designs she released before were probably drawn by her sister, and she just slapped her own name on them. How shameless. But their words didn't register in my head. In my past life, and in this one, I was utterly shaken. If she had only copied my drawings, there would have been countless ways to do it. Yet the design concept existed only in my head. How could she describe it exactly as I had imagined it? Thus, I picked up the microphone and faced the audience. Fine. Let's say I plagiarized her work, but how can any of you be sure she didn't steal someone else's work or hire a ghost designer? Caleb pointed right at my nose. "Do you think everyone is as filthy as you are?" I snorted. "It's pretty impressive of you to date someone that disgusting for 3 years. Clara Gardner." The audience caught on and immediately erupted into murmurs. Hold on. She's right. If she were that kind of person, how could Mr. Fairchild have dated her for 3 years without noticing? There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Yeah, Clara has a point. Perhaps she and her sister hired the same ghost designer. That would explain why their designs overlapped. As doubts spread, I curled my lips into a faint smile. Sophie's brows drew together almost imperceptibly before she plastered a gentle smile on my face and took my hand. "Clara, if you're indignant, why don't we compete in front of everyone? I don't want your reputation ruined. I'd feel terrible if that happened." My father and stepmother both sighed. "After everything your sister's done to you, you're still indulging her. You're just too kind for your own good, Sophie." Just then, my gaze landed on Caleb's grandmother, Olivia White, whose eyes were full of disappointment, and I made up my mind. "All right, let's do 3 rounds. I'll let you choose the themes, and I'll choose how we compete. How does that sound?" In this life, no matter what, I was determined to get to the bottom of this. "That sounds fair, Clara. Let's go with family, friendship, and love," I snorted. "All right, first round family. We'll each use a computer and design in real time." "Sure, that's fine with me." In no time, 2 computers were brought onto the stage, and we sat facing each other. I closed my eyes, visualized my design, and got to work immediately. I was confident that even if someone was spying on my screen for her, she could only copy what I'd already drawn. She would lag behind me, and her lie would unravel. Half an hour later, I was halfway done when Sophie rose from her seat with a smile. "I'm done, judges." My heart sank when her design appeared on the massive screen. It was exactly what I was drawing. I wasn't even done yet, and she had already completed it. How was that even possible? Let me explain the concept behind my design. It features a diamond set inside a soft platinum arc. It is based on a story between my mother and me. My mother had a difficult labor when she gave birth to me. The doctor said I refused to come out. My dad's never been one with words. He joked I was a stubborn little stone to get out. But mom said I'd grow up to be a diamond, just as tough and unyielding. Her words stole the air from my lungs. That was my story with my mother. How could she possibly know it? Having said her piece, she shot me a triumphant look, as if to say, "So what if I plagiarized your work? What can you do about it?" Just then, my unfinished design was projected onto the screen, and laughter immediately rippled through the audience. "Damn, didn't she say she didn't copy her sister's work? Her design is the same as hers, and she hasn't even finished it. Now this is embarrassing." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Olivia sigh in disappointment. Ever since my mother passed away, I had never felt the warmth of a family again. Olivia had treated me like her own granddaughter. To make sure Caleb treated me right, she told me that after I married Caleb, she would transfer all her shares to me, so he'd be working for me, not the other way around. Yet even she had started to lose faith in me. There was no way this was happening. My mind raced. Perhaps my father had told Sophie that story. However, even if she knew the backstory, there was no way she could design the exact same piece as mine. Hence, I decided to test her again. Fine. I'll count this round as my loss. Let's move on to friendship. This time, we hand draw it on paper. Before, she finished the design before I even did. Perhaps she had used some kind of AI or data modeling to predict my unfinished design. This time, with pen and paper, there was no way she could replicate it perfectly again. Soon, 2 easels were set up on the stage, and we stood facing each other. The same thing happened again. I deliberately drew at snail speed and even made several mistakes. Halfway through, I stopped drawing and looked up to study Sophie's expression. To my surprise, she stood up again and handed in her work. I'm done. Her hand-drawn piece was slightly different from what I had put on paper, yet it matched exactly what I had envisioned in my mind. This piece is shaped like a lighthouse with a dazzling diamond set at the top. It tells a story about my best friend and me. I was once stranded at a harbor in an unfamiliar city. My phone had no signal, and it was raining cats and dogs. The light from a distant lighthouse cut through the storm and guided me to shelter. Later, I found out my best friend had stayed up all night at her computer, using satellite tracking to locate me. Then she contacted the harbor manager and had the lighthouse turned on just for me. My heart sank. This was something that had happened between my best friend, Ivy Lancaster, and me. It was an incident only the two of us knew about. My legs felt like jello. For a split second, I wanted to give up. Everything that happened next was no different from before. My unfinished drawing was projected onto the massive screen, eliciting waves of ridicule. Jesus, she can't even copy it right. She messed up in so many places. This is humiliating. Get off the stage. I looked at Olivia, who was shaking her head. Caleb asked her, "See? One test was all it took. I told you she's not worthy of marrying me. She's a fraud. Do you believe the one who saved me back then was Sophie now?" 3 years ago, I had happened upon Caleb as he lost his footing due to hypoglycemia and fell into an enormous body of water. When I pulled him out, he was barely conscious. All he remembered was the emerald pendant around my neck, the one my mother had given me. Later, he tracked me down based on that memory. We fell in love in a heartbeat and were soon engaged. Everything had been smooth sailing. We were only a month away from our wedding when I was involved in a severe car accident. I spent 2 months bedridden in the hospital before I recovered, and not long after I was discharged, I was forced into this competition. Then it hit me. Caleb had forced me into this competition to make Olivia give up on me. I was the one who was destined to lose. No matter what I did, he was never going to let me win. Caleb joined the audience and demanded, "Get off the stage." Just then, a sharp slap cracked through the air. Everyone watched as Caleb clutched his face and stared at a woman in horror. "Are you a damn parrot? Shut the hell up." Then she ran up to me. "Pull yourself together, Cleo. I'm here. Let's see this through together." That woman was my only friend, Ivy. Her arrival reignited my courage. However, when I looked at Sophie, she suddenly touched her ear and cried out, "Oh my, what's this? There's something round in my earring. I'm sure it wasn't there when I bought it." The judges immediately came forward to inspect it. "It's a miniature camera," they gasped. The very next second, something occurred to Caleb. He stormed onto the stage and violently ripped off my glasses. Pain shot through my temple as my skin split open and warm blood trickled down my cheek. "Oh, now I get it. I gifted you a pair of high-tech glasses because your eyesight is bad. I never imagined you'd use them to cheat." Ivy leaned in and whispered, "Holy shit, did she use that to steal your work?" I shook my head as I wasn't sure. Probably not. I hadn't worn glasses in the final round of the competition in my previous life, yet she still submitted a design that was identical to mine. The audience instantly caught on and started hurling coffee and water bottles at me, leaving me drenched and disheveled. Yet my gaze never left the man standing in the corner. I wiped my face, picked up the microphone, and said, "Let's move on to the final round. Love, hand-drawn." This time, I sat on the stage and closed my eyes. The only man I had ever loved was Caleb. When we had first gotten together, I had scraped my knee by accident. It had barely broken the skin, yet he had panicked, scooped me up, and rushed me to the hospital. He had even threatened the doctors with those overbearing CEO lines. "If she ends up with a scar, I'll make everyone in this hospital pay." I had laughed so hard at the time. Later, when he had proposed to me, he had set off fireworks across the entire city and yelled into the sky, "God, you have to let Clara and me stay together for all eternity." Lost in those memories, I hadn't even noticed that tears were already streaming down my face. When I opened my eyes again, time was up. As I had expected, Sophie and I both turned in a blank page. Sophie lifted the microphone and explained, "I've never been in love before. To me, love is like a mysterious door, full of endless possibilities." So, I turned in a blank sheet. Love doesn't have a shape or form. When you love someone, you love everything about them. I rose to my feet with a derisive smile playing on my lips. My doubts were already answered. I took the microphone and announced, "I admit that I plagiarized Sophie. I will withdraw from the finals and step down from my position as chief designer of Fairchild Group." Now, it was the gardener's turn to panic. Caleb shot daggers at me. "Since you're giving up, our engagement is off." My father slapped me hard across the face. "Plagiarizing your own sister wasn't enough for you? Now you're even giving up your engagement with the Fairchild family. Are you trying to ruin our family?" I responded apathetically, "Oh, but I'm not just calling off my engagement to him. I'm also cutting ties with you as well." Ivy tugged at my sleeve and fretted, "Have you lost your mind? Are you seriously going to let them get away with this?" I smiled because I finally understood why Sophie had always known what I was thinking before I did. She hadn't used a hidden camera or any kind of AI algorithm. She definitely couldn't read minds either.
I looked straight at Sophie. "No," I said softly. "She doesn't need to." The venue fell silent. Sophie kept smiling, but for the first time since I'd been reborn, I caught the tiniest flicker in her eyes. I slowly walked toward the judges' table. "Your honors, have any of you noticed something strange?" One of them frowned. "What do you mean?" "I've changed computers. I've changed drawing methods. I've deliberately drawn mistakes. I've hidden myself away. Yet, she always finishes before me." I looked at Sophie. "Not after me. Before me. That means she isn't copying what I create." Murmurs spread through the audience again. I continued calmly. "She only ever copies one thing. My inspiration. Everyone looked confused. Only Olivia narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. I smiled bitterly. Think about the 3 themes. Family. She knew the story between my mother and me. Friendship. She knew an experience that only Ivy and I should have known. And love. I lifted my blank sheet of paper. She couldn't draw anything. The room became deathly quiet. Because she has never experienced my memories with Caleb. Caleb sneered. What ridiculous nonsense. No. I looked at him. She knew every thought I had before I started drawing. But the moment I stopped imagining you, she had nothing. I turned back toward Sophie. So I finally figured it out. You never stole my designs. You stole my memories. The entire hall erupted. What? Memories? Is she crazy? My father shouted, that's enough. Stop making excuses. But Sophie didn't laugh. She simply stared at me. Very, very quietly. Almost as if waiting for my next sentence. I took a slow breath. When was my car accident? The room fell silent again. 2 months before the competition. I looked directly at Caleb. Tell everyone. He frowned. What? Tell everyone who insisted I used the best neurologists. His expression stiffened. Olivia's gaze suddenly sharpened. You. Exactly. I nodded. I suffered a severe head injury. The hospital performed multiple neurological examinations. I slowly turned toward the judges. If my brain had been scanned then. I paused. What if something had been implanted? The audience gasped. Implanted? Impossible. Ivy suddenly froze. Wait. Her face went pale. No. She grabbed my shoulders. Clara. After your surgery, you kept complaining about ringing in your left ear. My pupils contracted. I remembered. Every night. That faint buzzing sound. I'd thought it was just a side effect of the concussion. Sophie instinctively touched her own left ear. Just for a second. It was an unconscious movement. But I saw it. So did Olivia. So. I whispered. It's synchronized. Sophie's smile finally cracked. Only for an instant. Olivia suddenly stood. Enough. Her voice carried across the entire hall. As chairwoman of today's judging panel, I am suspending this competition. Caleb's expression changed. Grandmother. I said enough. Her cane slammed against the floor. If there is even a 1% chance that Miss Gardner has been subjected to medical tampering, this competition is meaningless. She looked toward the organizers. Call the police. And preserve every piece of evidence. Sophie's face instantly lost color. She hurriedly stepped forward. Grandma Olivia, isn't this a little excessive? Clara is clearly just trying to delay. Silence. Olivia's icy gaze swept over her. I've lived for over 70 years. I've met liars. I've met geniuses. I've met thieves. But I've never met someone who can repeatedly describe another person's private memories word for word. She pointed at Sophie. So either she's performing a miracle, or she's committing a crime. For the first time, Sophie's hands began to tremble, almost imperceptibly. But I noticed, because unlike everyone else, I wasn't looking at her face anymore. I was watching her left ear, and hidden beneath her dangling earring. For just a split second, a tiny green light blinked. The tiny green light flashed once. Then it disappeared. No one else seemed to notice. I did. So did Ivy. She sucked in a sharp breath. Clara, did you see? I saw it. Sophie's hand immediately flew to her ear as if fixing her earring. When she lowered it again, the green light was gone. She smiled sweetly. I think my sister has suffered too much trauma from her accident. She's imagining things. Someone should take her to a hospital. My father hurried over. That's right. Clara, stop embarrassing yourself. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Those 3 words were so cold that he froze. Olivia looked from me to Sophie. What did you see? A light. I pointed calmly. On her left earring. Sophie laughed. A light? It's a diamond. The audience craned their necks, but from where they stood, the earring looked completely ordinary. Caleb scoffed. You're becoming more ridiculous by the second. You lose, then start inventing science fiction. I ignored him. Instead, I looked toward the backstage entrance. There should be surveillance footage. One of the organizers blinked. Huh. When Sophie first came on stage today, was she already wearing those earrings? The organizer hesitated. I'm not sure. Then check. Olivia immediately ordered. Go. Several staff members rushed backstage. Sophie's smile faltered for the briefest moment. It was enough. 5 minutes later, the staff returned carrying a laptop. We found the backstage footage. The giant screen switched from the competition stage to the recording. Everyone watched silently. The footage showed Sophie arriving that morning. She wasn't wearing any earrings. A murmur swept through the crowd. Then another clip played. Just before the competition began, a man in a black baseball cap approached her. He handed her a tiny velvet jewelry box. She opened it. Inside was the very pair of earrings she was wearing now. The audience exploded. Who is that? Why would someone give her earrings right before the competition? Pause it, Olivia ordered. The image froze. Although the man's cap covered most of his face, his watch was clearly visible. A limited edition platinum watch. I recognized it instantly. So did Caleb. His face drained of color. Olivia slowly turned toward her grandson. Caleb, isn't that your watch? The venue fell into stunned silence. Caleb's lips parted. It's not. Before he could finish. No. A calm male voice echoed from the entrance. Everyone turned. A tall man in a charcoal suit walked inside, followed by 2 uniformed police officers and several people carrying silver equipment cases. The badge around his neck identified him as the head of a digital forensics laboratory. He held up an evidence bag. That watch belongs to Mr. Caleb Fairchild. The serial number matches the purchase records. Every eye turned toward Caleb. His breathing became ragged. The expert continued. We also received an anonymous report less than 30 minutes ago. He looked directly at Sophie. It claimed that one contestant might be wearing an unauthorized electronic communication device. Sophie's composure finally cracked. What nonsense. She took a step backward. This is harassment. The lead officer spoke evenly. Miss Sophie Gardner. We have authorization to inspect the earrings. No. She clutched them tightly. No one touches me. That single reaction was all Olivia needed. If they're ordinary earrings, Olivia said quietly, why are you afraid? Sophie's breathing became increasingly uneven. They're expensive. I don't want them damaged. The forensic expert smiled faintly. We won't damage them. He opened one of the silver cases. Inside were portable scanners. They can be examined without removing them. The scanner hummed softly. Sophie backed away again. No. She suddenly turned and sprinted toward the side exit. The audience screamed. She's running. The officers immediately gave chase. But before Sophie could reach the door, a security guard slammed it shut. She collided with it so hard that she stumbled backward. One officer caught her wrist. Another gently but firmly restrained her. No, let me go. You can't touch me. As she struggled, one of the earrings came loose. It hit the marble floor. Crack. The decorative gemstone split cleanly in half. Instead of a diamond, a tiny circuit board rolled across the stage. The entire venue went dead silent. Even Caleb stopped breathing. The forensic expert slowly crouched, picked up the device with gloved fingers, and examined it. His expression changed. He looked at Olivia. This isn't jewelry. He held it up for everyone to see. It's a custom-built electronic device. Gasps rippled through the auditorium. Dozens of reporters surged toward the front, cameras flashing so rapidly that the stage looked like it was lit by lightning. The forensic expert carefully rotated the tiny device between his gloved fingers. It's transmitting and receiving data. He looked toward the second earring still dangling from Sophie's ear. I suspect the other half is the primary unit. The police officer stepped forward. Miss Sophie Gardner, we're seizing both earrings as evidence. No. Sophie jerked backward so violently that the remaining earring tore free. It clattered across the floor. This time, everyone saw it. Instead of a gemstone, the center housed another miniature circuit board. There was no denying it anymore. The audience exploded. Oh my God. Those aren't earrings. So she really was hiding electronic equipment. Caleb's face had turned deathly white. This can't be. Olivia slowly looked at him. You gave those to her? He opened and closed his mouth. He couldn't finish. The police officer immediately asked, Mr. Fairchild, did you purchase or provide these devices? I thought they were prototype smart earrings. Caleb blurted out. A friend asked me to pass them to Sophie before the competition. He said they monitored stress levels for designers during high-pressure events. Even as the words left his mouth, they sounded absurd. The audience laughed bitterly. Stress monitoring earrings? Who would believe that? The forensic expert ignored the commotion. He connected one of the devices to a portable analyzer. Everyone held their breath. A progress bar crept across the screen. 10%. 32%. 57%. Then, a folder appeared. The expert frowned. There are encrypted transmission logs. He tapped a few keys. Another window opened. The time-stamped records filled the display. 10 hours 16 minutes and 3 seconds, data received. 10 hours 18 minutes and 41 seconds, data received. 10 hours 21 minutes and 12 seconds, data received. Those times matched the beginning of the first round. Another series appeared for the second round. Then another for the third. The room fell eerily quiet. Someone in the audience whispered. So, it really was receiving something. But the expert wasn't finished. He opened another log. This device was paired with another transmitter. He enlarged a line of text. Connection source. Everyone leaned forward. The expert's eyebrows slowly rose. This pairing isn't coming from Miss Gardner's glasses. Every eye turned toward me. I hadn't even been wearing them during the final round. The expert continued. It's coming from. He stopped. His expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. A medical implant. The words landed like a bomb. What? A medical implant? That's impossible. The expert looked toward the police. I'll need a hospital-grade scanner to verify this, but according to these logs, the transmitting device is inside someone's body. My blood ran cold. Inside someone's body. Ivy instinctively grabbed my hand. Olivia's face darkened. The police officer looked at me gently. Miss Gardner, you mentioned suffering a severe car accident 2 months ago? I nodded. I underwent emergency surgery. Were any implants placed in your skull? I don't know. The officer exchanged a grim look with the forensic expert. We're arranging immediate medical imaging. I looked at Sophie. For the first time since this nightmare had begun. She wasn't smiling. She stared at the analyzer with pure terror. Not fear of being caught cheating. Fear that something much bigger had just been exposed. Then, she suddenly screamed. I didn't put it in her. The entire hall froze. Silence. Absolute silence. Sophie's eyes widened as she realized what she'd just blurted out. Her face drained of every trace of color. She clamped both hands over her mouth. Too late. The police officer stepped forward slowly. Miss Gardner. His voice was calm. We never said anyone implanted anything. So how did you know there was something to put in her? Sophie's hands shook uncontrollably. For the first time in either of my lives, she had no rehearsed smile, no gentle excuse, no perfectly timed tears. She simply panicked. I misspoke. The lead detective's expression didn't change. You said I didn't put it in her. I meant the earrings. The earrings weren't inside anyone. Sophie's lips trembled. I was confused. The detective nodded once. That's for us to sort out. He turned to another officer. Escort Miss Sophie Gardner to a separate room. She is not under arrest at this moment, but she is not to leave. No. My father rushed forward. My daughter hasn't done anything. The detective looked at him evenly. Which daughter? The question hit him like a slap. He instinctively looked at Sophie, then at me. He couldn't answer. Olivia watched the exchange with quiet disgust. For years, she said, you always seemed to know which daughter deserved your protection. My father lowered his head. The detective continued issuing orders. Mr. Fairchild, you'll also need to remain available for questioning. Caleb's face was pale. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Olivia looked at him with profound disappointment. Whether you knew or not, you helped deliver those devices. He had no reply. An hour later, the competition hall had emptied. Police tape sealed off the stage. The judge's table was covered with evidence bags. I sat in an ambulance outside the venue while a nurse gently cleaned the cut on my temple. Ivy sat beside me without saying a word. Finally she asked, Are you scared? I smiled faintly. I was. I looked toward the flashing police lights. But not anymore. In my previous life, I died believing everyone had abandoned me. Now, the truth had finally begun to surface. Just then, another vehicle pulled up. A mobile medical imaging unit. The detective approached. Miss Gardner. We've received judicial authorization. We'd like to perform a non-invasive scan. I nodded. Go ahead. 20 minutes later. The radiologist stared at the monitor. His face slowly changed. Then he called over the forensic expert. Neither of them spoke. The silence alone made my stomach twist. Finally, the radiologist looked at me. Miss Gardner. I'm going to ask you something. When exactly was your car accident? 3 months ago. And before that. Had you ever undergone surgery on your head? No. He inhaled deeply. There is an object. My heartbeat stopped. What? He enlarged the scan. Near the bone behind my left ear. A tiny metallic speck was clearly visible, barely larger than a grain of rice. The room fell silent. The radiologist spoke carefully. This object isn't part of any standard medical procedure. The detective stepped closer. Can you identify it? Not without removing it. He paused. But it appears to have been deliberately implanted. I closed my eyes. So I hadn't imagined the ringing. I hadn't imagined the headaches. Someone had actually put something inside my body. Ivy gripped my hand so tightly it hurt. I'm going to kill whoever did this. The detective shook his head. We'll find out who. Just then, another officer hurried into the mobile unit. Sir, what is it? We searched Miss Sophie Gardner's phone under emergency authorization. He handed over a sealed evidence bag. We found deleted messages. The detective frowned. Recovered? Yes. What did they say? The officer swallowed. The sender wasn't Miss Gardner. It was an unsaved number. He read aloud. Patient synchronization successful. Everyone in the room froze. He continued. Memory acquisition stable at 92%. Continue emotional stimulation during competition. My entire body went cold. There was one final message. Sent the night before the semi-finals. Once the finals are complete, remove the implant. No witnesses. The words echoed inside the mobile unit. Once the finals are complete, remove the implant. No witnesses. The detective's face hardened. No witnesses. He immediately barked, "Arrest Sophie Gardner." Outside, officers rushed toward the interrogation room. But seconds later, "Sir," an officer burst back in. "She's gone." "What?" The restroom window was broken. "She escaped." The detective swore under his breath. "Lock down every exit." Meanwhile, across town, Sophie climbed into a black SUV parked in a deserted alley. The man in the driver's seat never looked at her. "You failed. They found the implant." Sophie was shaking. "I didn't tell them anything." "You told them enough." She turned in horror. "What does that mean?" The man calmly pulled a silenced pistol from the glove compartment. "You've become a liability." Bang. The shot struck her in the chest. She stared at him in disbelief. "You." Bang. A second shot. Her body slumped against the door. The SUV disappeared into traffic. 30 minutes later, police found the abandoned vehicle. Sophie was barely alive. As paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, she grabbed the detective's sleeve with blood-covered fingers. It wasn't. Caleb. The detective leaned closer. "Who?" She coughed violently. "The doctor." "The accident." "It wasn't an accident." Her heart monitor screamed. She lost consciousness. Within hours, police obtained warrants. The hospital where I'd been treated was raided. Operating room records had been erased. Security footage was missing. But one thing had escaped deletion. A payment record. $5 million. Transferred the day after my surgery. The recipient. Dr. Victor Hale. The payer. Fairchild Biotech Research Division. Olivia stared at the document. Fairchild. She slowly turned toward Caleb. His legs gave out beneath him. I didn't know our research division was involved. You're the acting vice president. Olivia's voice was colder than ice. Your signature approved the funding. He looked at the paper. His own digital signature sat at the bottom. His face drained completely. They told me it was neurological research. I never read the project. Olivia closed her eyes. I raised a fool. 3 days later, Dr. Victor Hale was arrested while trying to board a private jet. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he confessed within hours. The room fell silent as the detective read the statement. The implant was experimental. It recorded electrical brain activity associated with visual imagination and emotional memory. It transmitted compressed data to a paired receiver. So Sophie always knew Miss Gardner's design concept before she drew it. I closed my eyes. So that was it. Every memory, every inspiration, every idea I thought belonged only to me, had been stolen straight from my mind. But, the detective continued, Dr. Hale insists he didn't invent the technology. Someone hired him. Someone financed the entire project. Someone wanted Clara Gardner to lose. Who? The detective slowly laid one final file onto the table. Across the front was a single company logo. Asterion Technologies. Below it, one name. Chairman, Richard Gardner. My father. The room went completely silent. My own father had financed the theft of my mind. My father stared at the file as though it were written in another language. That's impossible. I've never even heard of Asterion Technologies. The detective didn't respond. Instead, he slid another document across the table. These are the corporate registration records. My father's hand trembled as he picked them up. Listed under chairman was his name. Listed under beneficial owner. His name again. I didn't. He frantically flipped through the pages. This has to be forged. The detective calmly produced another folder. These are the bank records. Over the past 4 years, Asterion Technologies transferred more than $120 million into accounts controlled by Sophie Gardner, and another $80 million into shell companies that ultimately benefited Fairchild Biotech. Olivia slowly turned toward Caleb. So this wasn't just a competition. It was a business deal. Caleb looked physically ill. I swear. I never knew. The detective nodded. We believe you. Everyone looked at him in surprise. He continued. Because we arrested someone else an hour ago. The conference room doors opened. 2 officers escorted a middle-aged man inside in handcuffs. Dr. Victor Hale looked exhausted. The moment he saw my father, he laughed bitterly. So, you really don't remember? My father frowned. What are you talking about? Dr. Hale shook his head. You signed every contract. You approved every payment. You attended every meeting. You even insisted the experiment continue after Miss Gardner's first competition. My father roared. You're lying. Dr. Hale smiled sadly. No. I have recordings. He nodded toward the detective. The detective inserted a flash drive into the television. A video began to play. It showed a conference room from 3 years earlier. My father, Sophie, Dr. Hale, Anne, Caleb's father. Not Caleb, his father. The four of them sat around a table. On the screen, my father said coldly, Clara has too much talent. If she inherits Fairchild Group after marrying Caleb, neither Sophie nor our family will ever control the company. Caleb staggered backward. Dad. His father continued on the recording. So we let Clara create. We let Sophie receive. When Clara's reputation is destroyed, Sophie becomes the nation's top designer, and Caleb marries Sophie instead. Fairchild Group stays in our hands. The recording ended. Silence. Absolute silence. Caleb's father slowly lowered his head. There was nothing left to deny. Caleb stared at him as tears welled in his eyes. You used me. His father didn't answer. Caleb laughed bitterly. I kept thinking Clara betrayed me. I thought she had changed. But all along, I was the idiot. Olivia rose from her chair. Her cane struck the floor once. Twice. Then she looked at her son. I built Fairchild Group over 40 years. And you were willing to destroy an innocent woman. For shares. She turned toward the detective. I will cooperate fully. Freeze every Fairchild account connected to this conspiracy. Dismiss everyone involved. Anne. She looked at me. I publicly acknowledge Clara Gardner as the sole creator of every design submitted over the past 3 years. The detective nodded. Within days, the case dominated every news channel. The competition committee revoked Sophie's title. The $50 million prize was transferred to me. Every award Sophie had received was stripped away. Fairchild Biotech's illegal research division was shut down. Dr. Hale, Caleb's father, and the executives who participated in the conspiracy were formally charged. My father was arrested on charges including conspiracy, fraud, illegal human experimentation, and evidence tampering. As officers led him away in handcuffs, he finally looked at me. His voice cracked. Clara, I'm your father. I met his eyes calmly. No, my father died the day my mother did. This man. I looked at the handcuffs around his wrists. It's just someone who sold his daughter. He lowered his head. He never looked up again. The fallout didn't stop at arrests. It detonated. Within 24 hours, every major news network had the same headline. Fairchild Empire built on human experimentation scandal. Live streams replayed the footage on loop. My father being let out in handcuffs. Caleb's father refusing to speak to reporters. The broken smart earrings displayed in evidence bags. And my blank final round sheet now framed as proof of a stolen mind. The public reaction wasn't confusion anymore. It was fury. Fairchild Group stock collapsed overnight. Trading halted 3 times in a single morning. Then permanently suspended. Banks froze every corporate account. Subsidiaries began dissolving before the day ended. Board members resigned in rapid succession, each trying to distance themselves before their names appeared in the next indictment list. By evening, there was barely a Fairchild Group left to manage. Only ruins. Caleb didn't go home. He stood in the empty executive floor of the company headquarters, staring at the skyline like it belonged to someone else. His phone rang endlessly. He didn't answer. Until one message came through. Olivia White. Come to the legal office. Now. When he arrived, Olivia didn't look at him. She slid a single document across the table. Resignation agreement. Caleb blinked. What? You will step down from every position, she said flatly. You will relinquish inheritance rights. You will have no remaining claim to Fairchild assets. His voice cracked. I didn't do anything. Olivia finally looked at him. That is the problem. Silence. Then she added, colder. You did nothing when you should have questioned everything. Caleb's hands trembled as he signed. Each stroke of ink looked heavier than the last. Sophie Gardner's case ended differently. A hospital bed surrounded by officers. The implant removal surgery was performed under supervision. The moment it was extracted, she woke screaming, not from pain, but from silence. As if something inside her had suddenly gone quiet for the first time in years. She whispered one sentence before being taken away. I didn't think she would survive it. No one asked who she meant anymore. They already knew. My father's sentencing came fast. The evidence was complete. The courtroom watched as projection after projection played. Contracts. Payments. Recordings. The experiment logs labeled with my name like a specimen file. When the judge read the final sentence, my father didn't even react. Life imprisonment. No appeal. No exceptions. He only looked up once. And I wasn't there. The final blow came quietly. A single letter delivered to my hospital room during recovery. Caleb's handwriting. I kept thinking I was protecting the family. I ended up destroying it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even want it. I just finally understand what you meant when you said I never saw you. Just a broken engagement ring inside the envelope. I placed it on the table and didn't pick it up again. Outside, reporters were still waiting. Still calling my name. Still trying to turn the story into something they could sell. The days after that felt strangely ordinary. Not peaceful, just stripped down. The hospital discharged me a week later. The implant scar behind my ear healed into a thin line, evidence of something no longer inside me, but never fully gone from memory. I didn't return to Fairchild Group. There was nothing left to return to. What remained of it was absorbed, dismantled, or auctioned off piece by piece under court supervision. The empire didn't fall with a bang anymore. It simply stopped existing. Olivia met me once more before everything was finalized. She placed a small box on the table. Inside were the original shares she had once promised me, now restructured under a new trust. "This is yours," she said. I didn't open it. "I don't want ownership," I replied. She studied me for a long moment. "Then what do you want?" I thought about it. About the years I spent being measured, replaced, overwritten. About a life where even my thoughts were not mine. Then I answered quietly. Mine. That was all. Months passed. I left the city. The world eventually found new scandals to feed on, as it always did. Sometimes I saw my name in old articles, framed as tragedy, genius, victim, villain, depending on who was writing. None of them felt like me anymore. I opened a small design studio far away from the Fairchild name. Just paper, tools, and silence that didn't belong to anyone else. At first, I struggled to trust my own ideas. Every thought felt like it might not be mine. But slowly, that fear faded. Because nothing interrupted them anymore. One evening, I finished a sketch. A simple necklace design. Not inspired by anyone's story. Not taken from grief or manipulation. Just something I made because I wanted to. I looked at it for a long time. Then I laughed quietly, almost disbelieving. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like recovery. Outside, the sun was setting. The light hit the glass table and scattered like broken stars. I picked up the pencil again. And continued drawing. Just for